Well, it actually happened. For the first time since 2019, the Miami Marlins have swept the Philadelphia Phillies. Hello, everyone. My name is Justin Perez, and man, we have a wild one to recap here today. First of all, sorry for being a little bit late with this one. Just had a couple things to do before getting to this recap, but man, what a way to end this series today. Griffin Conine, by far the MVP, not only of this game, but in the series as he continues to put up staggering numbers in a red hot July as he ended up winning the game with a 2-run homer in the bottom of the eighth. But before we get into that, let's talk about this and let's go through this game as the events as they unfolded. Excuse me. So coming into this game, the Marlins were at 500 at 54 and 54. And it would have been very beneficial for them to get the sweep against the team that they're chasing in the NL East standings, as well as the wild card. The Phillies obviously are really cold coming out of the All-Star break, and there's been a lot of chatter, if you will, going on with the Phillies clubhouse, mainly involving rough relationships brewing between Bryce Harper and manager Don Mattingly, as well as Bryce Harper and former Marlins general manager Dave Dombrowski. Obviously, Dombrowski stating last year that Bryce Harper was not performing as an elite player should, or something along those lines, not performing up to his level, and Harper has taken exception to that. And today, after being asked in the locker room following the second loss of the series, he was asked if the Phillies needed some reinforcements or some additions to help out their roster for a playoff run, and he said that yes, we need some changes and some reinforcements. And Don Mattingly, the manager, he was, of course, the Philadelphia media, being as evil as they are, decided to relay that over to Don Mattingly, that message, and Mattingly responded this morning saying, that players like to be the GM. So obviously there's some tension brewing in the Philadelphia clubhouse with Bryce Harper and Don Mattingly, and that just is one of the many issues that have plagued the Phillies post All-Star break, and the Marlins have taken advantage of their cold performances. But man, talk about how bipolar this team could be, right? After losing 12 in a row, they actually sweep a division rival that has been giving them trouble for pretty much their entire existence. So the Phillies have been a pain in the Marlins' ass for years and years and years. And obviously, we finally get them back in a much-needed series sweep. Like I said earlier, our first sweep of Philadelphia since 2009. So how did this game go? So today we started off Ryan Gusto. It was supposed to be a bullpen game, which obviously it still was, but not to the level that I'm sure most Marlins fans were expecting. As Gusto was actually given some leeway today and actually gave us some length going 5 innings. But unfortunately, that's the only positive thing that I could say, is that he was able to help the bullpen rest a little bit and give us some length, because today was awful. You could make an argument that this start was his worst of the season. Ryan Gusto has been up and down for this entire season. Obviously, we traded for him last season. He came in from Houston, and he's been okay at best during his time here, but this season has been really bumpy, and today is an example of that. He ended up giving up 9 hits and 6 earned runs to go along with 2 walks and only 3 strikeouts through 5 innings. And he was able to get through the first 2 innings rather, I guess easily, for lack of a better term. He was able to get through the first 2 unscathed, did not give up a run, but by the 3rd inning, the wheels started to fall off. And by the 5th inning, it just went absolutely haywire, as the Marlins ended up trailing 6-0 at one point in this game before Gusto got pulled. You really got to wonder, again, going back to Clayton McCullough, you understand this, again, another questionable decision. You understand Clayton McCullough's, I guess, mindset in a way, if you really think trying to have Gusto out there, trying to let him get through 5 to give us some length, rest the bullpen a little bit, but it ended up backfiring big time. And you could question a lot if Gusto's last inning should have been the 4th, which in my opinion should have been. He ended up giving a couple of home runs, I believe, and one to Trey Turner in the top of the 5th that really cemented how awful his start was. So he comes out, and in the 5th inning, in the bottom of the 5th, the offense by this point started to look a lot like how we did during the 12-game losing streak, just in terms of of the bats being listless and unproductive. First 4 innings, they were shut out, and it kind of seemed like there was nothing going our way once again. I mentioned it in the description of last night's recap that it was kind of concerning to see the Marlins score only 1 run off of Aaron Nola, who, albeit, yes, his best start was against the Marlins back in Citizens Bank Field in Philadelphia, but he's had a rough year. So the fact that the Marlins could only score 1 run last night was really concerning, and again, through the first 4 innings, a big no-show. And to me, there's 3 players that really stood out today. The biggest was Jacob Marcy. Jacob Marcy, I'm sure I've touched on it a couple times already, both on the show and in these recaps, but Jacob Marcy's just had a horrendous season. And today, you could really pinpoint how bad he's been in terms of the types of at-bats that he's giving. Because he sort of seems like he's just looking down at the ball, which goes in the middle of the plate for the first 2 strikes, and then he decides to take a big swing and miss at a pitch that's going to the dirt. So it's very, very frustrating to see Jacob Marcy just sit, watch pitches, take 2 strikes early, and then take a bad swing to end his at-bat. He's just been absolutely brutal, and we saw that today. Just like I mentioned, Jesus Luzardo starting today, Marcy at-bat, a couple of pitches down in the middle of the strike zone, and then he takes a horrible swing and miss to end his at-bat and a bad strike 3. So he was just awful as usual. Also, Liam Hicks and Liam Hicks and Kyle Stowers went 0 for 3 respectively today. So a combined 0 for 6 for 2 of the Marlins' best bats. And we will be talking a little bit about the trade deadline coming up in a few days. Obviously, the trade deadline coming up Monday. Liam Hicks is one of the many names that we could see getting traded to another place and leaving Miami. I personally expect Liam Hicks to get traded, as there's several teams that need catchers, and we already have our catchers position pretty set with Joe Mack starting and Brian Navarreto and Augustine Ramirez being the 2 backups. But Hicks, a forgettable day, 0 for 3. We'll see what happens with him as the trade deadline looms and gets closer. But yeah, it's interesting to know he went 0 for 3 along with Kyle Stowers. Now, the bats started to wake up in the 5th as Otto Lopez ended up driving in the first run home to make it 6-1 as he sent home Esther Ruiz on a ground out. And then, after that, Heriberto Hernandez ends up getting a big 2-out, 2-run home run to cut the Phillies' lead in half. So it goes from 6-0 to 6-3 in the blink of an eye. Heriberto Hernandez has been the best power bat in the Marlins lineup this season, and that home run was his 16th of the season. He's also been rumored to be in trade talks. Me personally, I don't want to see him leave, but we'll see what happens as next week comes around. But a big clutch hit to pull us back to within 3. And then after a shutout top of the 7th, we come back on offense, come back to bat, and Otto Lopez again just at the right place at the right time. A big 1-out RBI single to pull us to within 2. And then Xavier Edwards, again, another player who's been rumored in trade talks. Huge. The biggest hit of the game, just to tie it with a 2-out, 2 RBI single to tie the game at 6 in the bottom of the 7th. He comes up big. And again, I don't want to see Xavier Edwards leave. That's another guy that I want him to stay. I know that he's been kind of rough the last couple of weeks, but again, he just comes to show you that whenever you need him, he's always there, and he could potentially give you a big hit, and he was able to do that this afternoon. So very, very, very thankful for Xavier Edwards for tying the game. And, of course, in the next inning, in the bottom of the 8th, Griffin Conine, just amazing aura farming moment with a game-winning 2-run homer to give us the 8-6 win in the bottom of the 8th. And it was kind of cool because we got to see the camera pan on Jeff Conine, obviously Griffin's father, in the stands, and he was pretty pumped up about that home run. And it was kind of cool to see that moment because obviously Jeff Conine, just like many Marlins fans or fellow Marlins fans, Jeff Conine is my personal favorite Marlin of all time. So it was kind of cool to see him get happy over his son hitting a clutch 2-run homer, and that just is a catapulter for how crazy of a month Griffin Conine has been. He's been hot this July with 5 homers, 8 RBIs, and 9 runs scored, and he's batting 258 with slash lines of 343, 532, and an 875 OPS. So he's just had a monstrous month of July, and he's been pretty much our most consistent and best bat. So it was awesome to see him get that 2-run homer today. And then the bullpen. We've talked about it. The bullpen has been absolutely dreadful today. But in a crazy, entertaining, and weird turn of fate, the bullpen is actually what, I guess, saves us in the long run. To go along with that Griffin Conine 2-run homer, Dax Fulton, Tyler Zuber, Pete Fairbanks, awesome performances out of the bullpen. Kind of saved Ryan Gusto's ass. So, in a weird twist of fate, like I mentioned, the starting pitcher ends up crapping the bed, only for our bullpen to carry us the rest of the way and do enough and actually help us get the win as we ended up pulling off that monstrous comeback. Dax Fulton came in the 6th inning, 2 perfect innings, got us through the 6th and 7th, gave us a chance with 3 strikeouts. Then Tyler Zuber pitched a perfect 8th inning with 2 strikeouts, and they ended up earning the win. So that's good for Tyler Zuber. And then Pete Fairbanks. I think you could make the argument that Pete Fairbanks is, without a shadow of a doubt, one of, if not the worst free agent signings in Miami Marlins franchise history. $13 million, $13 to $15 million that he's making this season. Always forgetting that number. But regardless, he's making a large sum of money to just get 3 outs every single game. Hasn't been able to do it, but he's been coming up big recently. For the first time all season, Mr. Pete Fairbanks has been able to toss 3 consecutive scoreless outings with no runs, no hits, and no walks given up. He's actually performing what we paid him to do, which is to be a shutdown closer in the bottom of the 9th and the pickup saves. He's done it 3 times in a row, 3 straight perfect bottom of the 9th innings. That's exactly what you want from him, and that's exactly what you've been expecting of him this entire season. So just a great win for the Marlins. And as of now, we are 2 games back of both the Phillies and the Arizona Diamondbacks. 2 games back of both of those teams for a National League wildcard spot. And like I mentioned at the top, we are also 2 games behind the Phillies for 2nd place in the National League East. So despite the horrendous franchise record-setting 12-game losing streak, the Marlins are still in a great spot and are still fighting for a playoff spot amidst a very uncertain trade deadline, which is looming next week. So, great win for the Marlins. Great series. Awesome to sweep these assholes. I hate the Phillies, as all Marlins fans should. The Phillies being just horrible to us for years and years and years. So it was nice to finally sweep them. Great series and just a tremendous experience, and a great series for Griffin Conine. Really pumped and proud for him. The Marlins, 55-54. They will be back at it tomorrow in Queens. Remember how we ended the month of May? Remember how we ended May? Being swept by the Mets in Queens in a 3-game set over that weekend. Now we have a chance to turn the page, turn the corner, and take advantage of a reeling New York Mets ball club in Citi Field, who is most likely gonna be selling at the trade deadline, and who also has Juan Soto out for the foreseeable future. He's on the 10-day IL. So this series coming up is a big one for the Marlins. A 4-game set in Queens coming up over the weekend, starting tomorrow. We will see you soon, and hopefully the Marlins can get another series win, beat the Mets, get revenge for that sweep that we sustained in May, and continue to keep the positive vibes going. So remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you soon, guys. Have a wonderful rest of your evening, and go fish.